Everything is going according to plan.
As I returned home to retrieve something I had forgotten, I heard my husband's voice coming from the living room.
If all goes well, she will head to the afterlife soon.
I could hear her saying that too. To think that I had been hated to the extent of being targeted for my life by them, despite living together all this time. Typically, one might confront my husband and mother-in-law right then and there. However, due to my profession, I deliberately chose not to. From that day on, I began to take action to expose their wrongdoing. My name is Ava Johnson. My husband, Martin, is 3 years older than me, and we got married 3 years ago. We met at a traffic safety workshop held at his company. At the time, I was working as a police officer in the traffic division. It was my first time participating in a traffic safety workshop, and I was extremely nervous because I wasn't good at speaking in public. But he was the one who assisted me during that time. His conversation helped ease my nerves, and we got along well from then on. However, despite being married for many years, we still don't have any children. I wanted children right after getting married, but Martin wasn't as enthusiastic.
Raising kids costs money, so maybe we should wait until we have a bit more savings.
He says that, but since we both work, there shouldn't be any financial concerns. Yet, whenever the topic of children comes up, he always dodges the conversation. I'm not the only one concerned about not having children. My mother-in-law Irene has also been worried about us not having children. At first, she seemed eager for grandchildren, but after 3 years, she started to wonder if it was me who was refusing to have children.
Ava, you're not getting any younger. You should start trying harder. If a woman doesn't have children, she's just like a maid.
I don't refuse to have children willingly. Whenever I relay what she says to Martin, he always gets grumpy.
What's your problem? Are you saying it's my fault? I'm busy with work and tired. If you want kids, try harder until I feel the same.
He always says that and then meticulously critiques my appearance. Furthermore, his preference is for flashy, trendy fashion more suited for younger women, not for someone like me who's almost 30. Plus, I can't dress too extravagantly because I never know when I might get called into work, but no matter how much I explain, he doesn't understand.
A wife who doesn't dress stylishly is unfit to be a woman. Instead of complaining to me, you should reflect on yourself.
It's surprising how my once kind husband could have such awful thoughts. I slightly regret getting married. About 2 years into our marriage, my department changed, and so did my work schedule. It became difficult to synchronize my days off with my husband's, and our time together as a couple decreased, causing our misunderstandings to grow. Feeling this wasn't right, I made an effort to synchronize our days off, but he began to casually make other plans. You're canceling again? We had plans to go to the movies together today, remember?
Sorry. I was suddenly invited by the girls from work to go fishing yesterday. I couldn't bring myself to put bait on the hook because I'm scared of fish, so I had to go, you know? My bad. But it's part of the job, you know?
Despite uttering words of regret, his expression was smug. Because of his impromptu outings, I found all the plans I had looked forward to were being cancelled one after another. Feeling upset, I wanted to at least spend a quiet day at home on my day off, but without fail, my mother-in-law would show up unannounced.
Oh, isn't Martin here?
He went fishing. He was asked by some girls.
Well, I suppose he'd rather hang out with other girls than be with you.
I didn't want to deal with her remarks without consideration for my feelings, but I also couldn't just leave her alone and go out. And so, my day off disappeared amidst such sarcastic comments.
You two don't seem capable of having children, huh? You should be more proactive. After all, you're the wife, right?
I'm doing my best, but it's because of money. He isn't enthusiastic about it.
Money? Then how much are you making right now?
Even though she was my mother-in-law, I hesitated to share private information. Nevertheless, I reluctantly disclosed a slightly lower amount than what I earned, and she responded with a surprised laugh.
Oh, it's surprisingly low when compared. Well, I guess that's what you get for being a public servant. For someone earning such low wages, it's surprising you're talking about wanting children.
I wonder what she was comparing it to. I wish she wouldn't compare public servants to wealthy individuals. However, her demeanor at that moment made me feel uneasy, as if it was just the prologue to a story about to unfold. From that day on, my mother-in-law started openly bullying me. She began to visit our house more frequently, sometimes even meeting me half of the week. On one occasion, when I returned from work, she had entered the house with her spare key, ostentatiously preparing dinner and waiting for me.
Oh, so even though you're a wife, you prioritize work over the household. Honestly, women without children have it easy.
Perhaps due to consuming these meals filled with sarcasm, I always ended up feeling unwell afterward. And then, at times when I slept until noon after a night shift, she would forcibly wake me up.
How long are you going to sleep? Sleeping until noon because of the job you chose makes you unfit as a wife. Honestly, if you keep this up, your husband might start looking for other women outside.
She would say that and then force me to eat breakfast. As a result, I gradually found it difficult to enjoy anything I ate, sometimes even feeling physically uncomfortable. This state continued for over a month, and due to stress and lack of sleep, I would rush to the bathroom immediately after eating at home. Instead of showing concern for my tired face, Martin would make annoyed expressions.
Seeing such a gloomy face at home would bring my mood down too. You're even slacking off on housework, leaving it all to mom, so at least be a bit more pleasant.
Your mom comes over and makes snide remarks only when she knows I'm busy and can't do the chores. You've noticed that, right? Even though I said that he just ignored me and kept watching TV. Despite not listening to me, he would laugh at the stupid stories of idols on TV, which made me explode with frustration. You haven't been looking me in the eye and talking properly lately. You've started canceling plans with me on your days off too. Are you cheating on me or something?
Cheating? What nonsense.
Suddenly, he raised his voice in response to my words.
I have work obligations. You have the nerve to say that without understanding my struggles. Maybe you're feeling that way because you're the one cheating, huh?
His face turned red as he unleashed his words in a forceful tone. Stunned by his intensity, I couldn't say anything in return. To make matters worse, he took his frustration out on the vase on the table, knocking it to the floor and causing broken shards to scatter at our feet. There was no need to go that far. It was the first time I felt genuinely scared of him. Since then, such incidents have occurred repeatedly, and just being together at home has become emotionally draining. One day, amid such ongoing days, I found myself having to leave home for a few days due to work commitments. On the day of my trip, I left the house but soon realized I had left my important planner behind. I hurried back home to retrieve it. However, a fight with him from the previous day, where he had said,
"You're going on a business trip without doing any housework,"
made things awkward, so I felt uncomfortable about facing him. Consequently, when I returned home, I quietly opened the door to avoid making any noise. There, I noticed my mother-in-law's shoes. Feeling even more hesitant about encountering them both, I gently picked up the planner from on top of the shoe cabinet and intended to leave quietly. Then, I overheard their conversation.
Got that thing too. So far so good as planned.
Looks like the wife's on her way out soon.
Yeah, but it's not showing much effect yet.
She's been rushing to the toilet after every meal, so isn't it about time?
The conversation was so sinister that I couldn't believe my ears. What? What do you mean? Quickly, I took out the voice recorder I always carry with me and immediately started recording. Unaware that they were being recorded, the two inside the room continued talking in a carefree manner, discussing outrageous plans in loud voices.
Maybe we should increase the amount of life insurance. Then we can also pay off Mom's debts, right?
That would be helpful. You won't have to see that ugly face every day anymore either.
I was taken aback. No matter how much they dislike me, I never imagined they were considering something like this. And to top it off, I heard a contemptuous laugh.
Even if she says she's from the police, she's just on traffic duty. She'll never figure it out.
As anger began to outweigh my sadness, I vowed to seek revenge against them. From then on, I continued pondering how to get back at my husband while on my business trip. Perhaps because I was wearing a gloomy expression, a colleague who was with me became concerned and, as I vented, unexpectedly provided me with some information. It turned out that a while ago, there was a report of a disturbance caused by a drunk person at a bar. When the police arrived, it was my husband causing the commotion. This colleague had attended my wedding, so they recognized my husband's face immediately.
My girlfriend's with me. I'll knock anyone out who lays a finger on her.
He embraced one of the female staff at the establishment, shouting and causing a scene, kicking tables, and acting recklessly in his drunken state. Moreover, it seemed more like he was actually in a relationship with her rather than just saying so in his drunkenness. So, he was cheating after all. Suddenly, everything about his behavior made sense. Instead of feeling shocked, I felt a surge of determination, especially to thoroughly investigate my husband's infidelity. Just watch, he won't get away with this. A week later, he approached me with a gentle tone reminiscent of when we first started dating. Expecting some ulterior motive, I tensed up, but he handed me a document.
Ava, you always work so hard in your dangerous job as a police officer. I'm proud of you as your husband, but I can't help but worry. What if something were to happen, or if someone held a grudge against you?
It was a life insurance application form. I was convinced that he was still planning to execute the scheme. Yet, one last time, I wanted to believe in him. Do you think so? Do you think someone might come after me? And if they did, would you worry about me? I looked straight into his eyes. Please reconsider, I pleaded. With a broad smile, he nodded.
Of course. So, please sign this form quickly.
Was he only seeing the insurance payout he would receive in exchange for my life? He may be a despicable man, but thanks to him, I felt empowered to exact my revenge without hesitation. Well, you never know who might be targeting someone's life in this world.
Yeah, that's right. There are plenty of dangerous incidents happening.
For instance, someone with foolish ideas in the family.
Oh, yeah.
Like wanting to get rid of their annoying wife to be with a young mistress. He began to get flustered, his eyes darting around nervously. Or being persuaded by a struggling mother in debt to take out a hefty insurance policy on the wife and send her off to the afterlife.
Hold on a sec. What on earth?
I played back the recording in front of him. There, my mother-in-law's conversation and crude laughter filled the room, and his expression contorted into an ugly grimace in no time.
Hey, what's this all about?
I happened to overhear it. Luckily, I had the voice recorder handy, right? I wouldn't carry it around if I stayed on traffic duty like before.
Wait, isn't Ava still on traffic duty?
I'm in the detective division now. I've told you that. Well, you probably weren't listening, considering you seemed to have your mind on some other woman back then. I slammed down the evidence photos of his affair that I found hidden in his room. These were all indisputable, found during my search of the house while he was out.
I don't know about these photos. I don't even know these women.
Oh, really? She's a stripper. Don't you remember? It was the club where you got drunk and caused a scene. You were shouting, "She's my girl," or something. Quite the show.
How much do you know?
Well, who knows? Haha. Cornered, he began desperately making excuses without concern for appearances.
It's my mom's fault. She heard about me dating the girl from the bar and started saying you should marry someone with a higher salary than you. She put me up to it.
Ah, it all made sense now. My mother-in-law must have compared my salary unfavorably to his affair partner. Based on what I heard from the recorded conversations, my mother-in-law had a considerable amount of debt. Planning to use my insurance money and the stripper's income to repay that debt was not only foolish but also despicable. So, it was your mother who came up with the plan?
Yeah. So, I'm not involved.
What are you talking about? First of all, it was your affair that started all this. Blaming others for it is just low. I won't forgive you for this. When I scolded him, he suddenly let out incomprehensible shouts and grabbed me by the collar. But I immediately grabbed his hand and threw him to the floor with force. I'm a detective. I'm used to dealing with rough people like you. I can protect myself even without life insurance. As he writhed in pain on the floor, I took out handcuffs. I'm arresting you.
Come on. You're kidding, right?
Seeing the handcuffs, he suddenly became weak and started apologizing.
I'm sorry. It was just a moment of madness. Please forgive me.
Save those excuses for the police station. I'll have plenty of time to listen to them then. Afterward, my husband and mother-in-law were sentenced to jail for conspiring to harm me. I divorced him and demanded $2 million in damages from both him and his mistress. Although it was attempted, I might be out in a while, but losing my job and having to pay damages, along with repaying my mother-in-law's debt, will undoubtedly make life difficult for them. On the other hand, at this age, I'm enjoying living alone again. I've been living a constrained life for so long, so I plan to spread my wings and enjoy some freedom for a while. How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Well then, let's meet again in the next video. 2350.
Welcome home. We're getting a divorce. The divorce papers are inside.
I had just returned home, carrying our newborn daughter. His cold words left me in shock. As I stood there stunned, my husband began to leave the house. Snapping back to reality, I grabbed his arm in desperation and demanded an explanation. What do you mean, divorce? You need to explain this to me.
It's simple. I just don't love you anymore.
I was utterly devastated by his words. Was I the only one who had been excited about starting our new life as a family of 3? Without even looking at our child, he picked up his large bag and left. I am Harper, a 35-year-old housewife. Being quite timid, I was drawn to my husband's assertive personality and we started dating. A year later, prompted by my pregnancy, we got married. When I finally heard the sound of a baby crying, I was overjoyed to meet my 3,000-gram little angel. She was a very healthy and adorable baby girl. After sending him a photo of our daughter via email, I called him. To my disbelief, he said,
"What's this?
"Excuse me?"
She's not cute. She looks like a monkey."
"What are you talking about? She's your daughter." After that, my husband stopped contacting me, and no matter how many times I called, he never answered. I was in complete shock and couldn't understand why he would say such things about our child. Looking back, he had never shown much interest in the baby growing inside me, always seeming somewhat distracted. I had always felt uneasy about his indifference, but I was too overwhelmed by severe morning sickness to confront his aloof behavior. During my hospital stay after giving birth, my husband never showed up, and my anxiety grew even more. If he meets our baby, Tim will surely change. I kept repeating this mantra to myself, trying to believe it. But my wish never came true. He abandoned me and our newborn daughter. What do I do now? I have no one to turn to, I thought. I had no parents, and the only family I had were my in-laws. My father-in-law was a quiet and kind man, but my mother-in-law was harsh, and I honestly found her difficult to deal with.
Harper, how long do you plan to remain a housewife?
Excuse me?
Just because you got pregnant doesn't mean you can be lazy. Get a job and support yourself without relying on your husband.
But he wanted me to take care of the household.
I don't want to hear excuses. From now on, you'll balance both childcare and work. Got it?
Given our poor relationship, I felt I couldn't rely on her. Feeling desolate, I entered the house with the intention of putting my daughter to bed. However, an unusual sight awaited me inside. What is this? Everything I had prepared for my daughter, the crib, baby supplies, and even the furniture, was gone. All that remained were my few personal belongings and the divorce papers on the floor. I couldn't stand anymore and collapsed to the floor. Just then, my husband called. Maybe the divorce was just a moment of confusion? Maybe he's reconsidered and is coming back. Clinging to that hope, I answered the phone immediately. Hello? Where are you? Please come back soon.
I forgot to mention, I sold the house. You need to be out by tomorrow.
You can't be serious. What are we supposed to do?
Become homeless, for all I care.
I was shocked. How much more did he intend to make me suffer? Unable to hold back my emotions, I sobbed and pleaded for an explanation. You suddenly demand a divorce, and now even the house. What did I do wrong?
Have you looked in the mirror since you got pregnant?
What do you mean?
You looked pale every day like I was living with a ghost.
He laughed mockingly, then continued in a cold tone.
I married you because you always did whatever I said. But now I regret it.
What?
I'm bored with your shy personality, so I'm divorcing you.
That's too cruel. It's too selfish.
I have nothing more to say to you. Pack up and leave the house. Goodbye.
With that, he hung up. For the first time, I felt hatred toward my husband. But no matter how much I blamed him, it wouldn't change the situation. Feeling utterly helpless, I decided to leave the house to buy diapers and formulas that had disappeared. However, my daughter, who had been peacefully sleeping, suddenly began to cry and wouldn't stop no matter how much I tried to soothe her. Perhaps she sensed my desperation as I struggled to cope with my husband's betrayal and losing our home while trying to figure out how to take care of her. I sat on a bench in a nearby park, trying to calm her down when someone unexpected appeared.
You shouldn't take a newborn outside at 1 month old. How can you be so irresponsible? You need to start acting like a mother.
What? Mother-in-law?
You know nothing. What if something happens to her? How will you take responsibility?
It seemed she knew the day of my discharge and had come to visit the house. Finding it empty, she followed the sound of my baby crying and found me. As she scolded me harshly, a flood of emotions overwhelmed me, and I began to sob uncontrollably. Then, I felt something warm on my back.
I didn't mean to make you cry. But why are you here? Where is Tim? Explain to me what happened.
She gently rubbed my back, trying to comfort me. Confused by the unexpected kindness from her, I slowly recounted everything that had happened.
Tim did that? Unforgivable. If you have nowhere to go, come to my house.
But.
No buts. I'll carry your things. Let's go.
Following her lead, I headed to my in-laws' house. As soon as we arrived, she said something astonishing.
Let's live together from now on.
What?
You don't have anywhere else to go, do you? Are you planning to become homeless with the baby? Here, at least, you'll have a bed and food. Let's do that.
I was bewildered. This was the same woman who had always treated me harshly, and now she seemed like a different person. Seeing my hesitation, she offered me a regretful smile.
I've been told to you before, and I'm truly sorry.
No, it's fine.
I kept telling Tim he needed to take responsibility as a father. I feel terrible that I couldn't help and that it came to this.
This isn't your fault. She slumped her shoulders and looked sad. Feeling flustered, I decided to ask the question that had suddenly come to mind. I always thought you disliked me, which is why you treated me so coldly. But is there another reason?
It's because you reminded me of my younger self. I couldn't stand it.
At this point, I learned something I had never known. My quiet and kind father-in-law had been unfaithful in his youth. My husband, who inherited his father's personality, also frequently got into trouble with other women. Then, she said something that struck me.
I just wanted you to be a strong, resilient mother. That's why I was so hard on you. I repeatedly told you to get a job so you wouldn't struggle financially if you ever got divorced.
Her harsh words had a purpose. Realizing that she was a warm-hearted person, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. But why didn't you divorce him? I don't think I could endure infidelity. I would have divorced him.
That's because I've always been the one supporting the family financially.
What do you mean?
He looked down on me when I was a housewife and constantly had affairs. But I was determined to not let that crush me, so I started working. Eventually, I earned more than he did. Not wanting to lose the comfortable life we had, he became submissive, fearing I would divorce him.
So, the way he is now is because he regretted his actions.
Exactly. I also thought staying together was the best punishment for him, rather than an easy divorce.
As we talked, I found myself beginning to smile. However, her expression suddenly turned serious.
About Tim suddenly asking for a divorce, do you think he might be having an affair and wants to be with someone else? Have you noticed anything strange about his behavior?
Honestly, I have no idea. But I can't just accept this divorce without doing something. I pulled the divorce papers I had brought from home out of my bag. What? This is. As we looked at the papers, my mother-in-law and I exchanged glances. We made a firm decision and began to formulate a plan. The next day, my mother-in-law made a call to execute our plan.
I heard from Harper that you're getting a divorce.
Has she already told you, Mom?
What are you talking about? I'm feeling fantastic. It's the right decision to divorce someone like her. Next time, marry a younger and more wonderful woman.
Yeah, right. I don't ever want to see her miserable face again. She might be living under some bridge by now.
How pitiful he sounded. It seems like he has completely convinced himself that my mother-in-law dislikes me. Unaware that I overheard their conversation, I felt anger rising toward him as he boasted obliviously. But he has hell waiting for him.
Actually, I want to introduce someone to you.
Oh, has the next remarriage partner already been found?
Well, yeah.
That's wonderful news. We need to prepare a celebration for the two of you. Since the $1 million fixed deposit will mature in 1 month, let's prepare a big celebration.
Seriously?
Of course. But in return, you better introduce your partner to me properly before anything else. Don't rush into registering your marriage until then. Got it?
Got it. I'll bring her to the family home in a month. Count on me to handle the celebration.
My mother-in-law's acting skills are amazing. He fell right into our plan, and my mother-in-law and I exchanged knowing smiles. And so, I decided to quietly make preparations behind the scenes until that day arrived. A month later, unaware of the trap, my husband arrived at my in-laws' house with a young woman, feeling proud and confident. I opened the front door with as much composure as possible and greeted them. "Welcome to my house." My husband was visibly shocked as if he might topple over any moment, while the woman wore a bewildered expression. Then my mother-in-law joined us.
Come in,
She said with authority, and they timidly entered the living room.
Hey, Mom, what's going on here?
He stammered.
Well, Harper, shall we begin?
She said. I handed them a few photos of them entering a hotel and a report detailing their activities over the past month. I'll be seeking compensation from you too. With this much evidence, there's no way you can talk your way out of it. Be prepared, I said firmly.
Wait a minute, how did you gather this evidence?
My husband protested. My mother-in-law funded a detective to investigate. She said leaving this to the professionals was the best course of action. I explained.
Why would Mom cooperate with someone like her?
He exclaimed.
Oh? Am I mistaken? Who would support someone so unreasonable, someone who abandons your wife and child to marry another woman?
She retorted.
What about the $1 million celebration?
He asked.
That was a lie to prevent you from filing for marriage for a month.
She replied.
You tricked me.
He exclaimed, his anger palpable, and the woman sitting beside him looked crestfallen, surely thinking this wasn't how things were supposed to go. I thought I had finally punished them, but then he uttered unbelievable words.
We're already divorced. You can't claim compensation for cheating now.
He's right. I'm not paying any compensation.
Their words left me utterly flabbergasted. The statute of limitations for claiming compensation is 3 years from the discovery of infidelity. Unaware of such common knowledge, my confident husband and his mistress were snorting with self-assurance. So, I decided to enlighten them with a fact. You see, we're still legally married.
Huh?
That divorce paper you left behind? It hasn't been filed yet.
What the hell? Why haven't you done it yet?
You declared divorce without any explanation, and I couldn't accept that. Do you even realize the absurd parting gift you left when you walked out of the house? Confused by my words and exchanging looks with each other, I handed them a document. Isn't this your marriage certificate?
I thought I lost that. How do you have it?
It was tucked beneath the divorce papers. Leaving something like this behind, you're absent-minded, aren't you? Yes. The papers I thrust at them were the completed marriage registration forms of the two of them. On the day I found these, my mother-in-law and I realized that he intended to marry his mistress. So, instead of divorcing immediately, we decided to gather evidence to prove his infidelity while our marriage technically continued. I'll never forgive you for abandoning your family. And you, Noah, won't escape either. You'll pay the compensation properly. As I declared this, his face rapidly drained of color. However, the woman seemed oddly triumphant.
Well, that's a relief. If you're divorcing him, it's fine with me.
Excuse me?
Because, he is wealthy. He can pay any amount of compensation. Right? Isn't that so?
Listening to her words, I finally understood his discomfort. He certainly isn't a high earner. Yet, when he appeared after a month, he was decked out in designer labels from head to toe. Surely, he had lied to this woman, claiming to be rich. And to cater to his mistress, he must have sold furniture, baby supplies, and even our house. So, I decided to enlighten the smug woman. Unfortunately, this man isn't wealthy at all.
What are you talking about?
His take-home pay is about $1,800. Quite low for his age. And I, his wife, can confirm it without a doubt.
Ha! That's different from what I heard. Hey, is this woman telling the truth? What's going on?
Your face is as pale as a ghost. Instead of freezing up, why don't you tell Lena-san the truth from your mouth? Perhaps fed up with his silence as he bowed his head, the woman erupted in anger.
Our engagement is off. I have no use for a broke man like you.
Wait, please. I beg you. Don't abandon me.
It was the first time I had seen him in such a pathetic state. As soon as the woman announced the cancellation of the engagement, he began crying and pleading for forgiveness. Seeing him like that, I grew increasingly angry and shouted, interrupting their conversation. For heaven's sake, enough. If you want to argue, do it outside. Get out of here right now. Startled by the sudden outburst, the two fell silent. Then, my mother-in-law, who had been silent all along, finally spoke up.
Tim, you're no longer my son.
Mom, what do you mean?
I mean, I'm disowning you. Leave with that woman immediately. Never show your faces in front of us again. Understand?
The two froze in fear at the fierce expressions on our faces. I thrust the prepared agreement in front of them, making them promise to pay compensation and my husband to pay child support. They left the house as if fleeing. That same day, I submitted the divorce papers, putting an end to my marriage with my husband. Later, as expected, my ex-husband and the woman broke up. Moreover, he had resorted to loan sharks to maintain the facade of being wealthy. He was fired from his job due to collection calls reaching the company, and he ended up working day labor while paying $2 million in compensation and $300 a month in child support. Naturally, he also demanded $1.5 million in compensation from his mistress. I heard she resorted to the streets to pay him off. On the other hand, I have built a very good relationship with my mother-in-law, whom I once felt awkward around. After the divorce, with my family gone, she suggested,
Let's live together.
And I decided to take advantage of her kindness. Starting a job and struggling to balance work with childcare, I feel like I'm gradually changing. This is probably because I've become a mother and have someone to protect, and because I've been watching her closely. With my beloved daughter and my in-laws whom I want to cherish for life, I want to continue spending peaceful days. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Well then, let's meet in the next video.